Welcome. This is the special August 5th meeting of the Geneva 304 School Board. Bonnie, would you call the roll?
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Nice to have you all here. Next item is the pledge. The flag is back there in the corner. I'll lead it. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess anybody who wanted to sign the attendance sheet has done so. Item 2, recognition awards, presentations, and public hearings. Seems like the last one might be the most relevant. Andy.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share tonight. And so first, thanks to the board for being willing to figure out how to get a special meeting on the books. This is an issue we've been working on and working through for a good chunk of the summer now at this point. And we're really nearing the finish line, and so we're grateful to be able to have this opportunity for a discussion about this project. Also want to thank, and I'm sure we'll hear from him in a bit, Ken Flory from Robin Schwartz, who's really been instrumental in helping us work through this. He and his associate, Brittany Tice, have really done so much work to help us, help Todd and I as we've been working through this whole process. So I want to share with you kind of where we're at this point. I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can, and I know Ken is available and happy to answer questions too. So here's where we're at. Just start with a little background and context as a recap. Remember that the developer, Shodine, has proposed and been working with Campton Hills for potential annexation of this large property out west, known as the Ryan property. It's been potentially several developments over the last 30 years. Settlements of LaFox at one point, most recently the Pulte development that St. Charles was considering annexation for, and now the name of this potential development is LaFox of Campton Hills. It's approximately 900 units. Any of the units that would be built in any of these parcels, as you see, are within Geneva 304 only. While some of the land in this development, particularly up here in the northeast corner, is not in our district, you can see they don't have plans at this time to put any homes in there. So any of the homes, residences in this development would be within our district. It's a 15 to 20 year time horizon, so we hear, and theoretically it could be hundreds of new students for Geneva 304. So we had, as you know, as we've shared, a lot of discussions about this over the summer, several ongoing meetings with the village and the developer. As you know, we sought cash considerations in lieu of land as outlined in the ordinance by the village of Campton Hills, because we know that new students will have impact, right, on the district, on facilities, on technology needs, transportation, any of the resources that we have, obviously, teachers, anything, right? And obviously, we want to make sure we're maintaining a high quality education for all of our current students and any new students that are generated by this development. So at this point, what we've got before you tonight, and what we're happy to dig into and answer more questions about if you have them, is a developer donation agreement that we've worked through with the developer to theoretically put the district on sound financial footing if this development comes to fruition. So there's several things we can talk to, but really kind of three key details that I think are most important for us to consider. First is a financial contribution of $6,800 per residence paid to the district at the time of permit. So at the time any new residence gets that permit, there's a $6,800 per residence contribution made to the district by the developer, with a annual CPI adjustment, because we know if this is going to be a 15 to 20-year timeline, $6,800 is going to be a different amount of money 15, 20 years from now. So we've built into this, a CPI adjustment. This would amount to approximately $6.1 million over the course of the development construction, and that's before CPI growth again. Obviously, a lot of this depends on how many homes they build per year and when they permit those homes, and all that kind of stuff. But it would be approximately $6.1 million before that CPI growth, so more than that. The next big piece, and we touched on this a little bit at our previous meeting, but we've spent more time digging into this with them and building this into the agreement. So there are potential TIF implications. We understand and learned just right before our last meeting that the village and the developer are considering creating a TIF to complete this project. We don't know for sure that will happen. They've not gone through any of the formal things to make that happen yet at this point. But it's on the table. And us knowing it was on the table meant we wanted to make sure we were protecting the district if that came to fruition. So the language that's built into that is to note that the tax increment, right? Remember when they start a TIF, if a TIF was started, we would get the baseline property value in taxes at the start of that TIF. That's what we would get, and then any new growth is called the increment, and that would be on top. We would keep getting that base amount, and the increment would be used for infrastructure things, and mostly what we're hearing is some of the water aspects of the project. Yeah, the increment is, thanks Ken, the increment is controlled by the village and not the developer. So the village controls that increment, and what we've built in is if a TIF is established, that increment would be used to pay the district full per capita tuition amount for each and every student enrolled in the district that resides in any residence, right? So a simple way to think about it is kids in seats in the district, right? So if in the first year of that development, there's 10 kids from the boundaries of that development who come to Geneva 304, we will get our per capita, per pupil expenditure for each of those 10 kids. Every year, right? So if the next year it's those 10 plus 10 more, then we would get that for 20 kids, right? So the financial contribution at the top, right? That's a one-time payment. Yeah. The per pupil expenditure would be ongoing throughout the duration of the TIF. For context, our recent per pupil expenditure is around between $18,000 and $19,000, and that grows every year. That would continue to grow, and whatever that amount was in the most recent year is the amount we would get per student generated by the development.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so what you're saying is our base tax amount that we would get no matter what, because they can't take that. So whatever the base property value is at the time the TIF is created, that's what the taxes amount is created from, and then we get our portion, and anything extra would go to the TIF essentially. But that base amount wouldn't cover tuition essentially, and so whatever amount of tuition it doesn't cover, they still have to pay us. That
would come from the increment. And maybe Ken, if you just want to stand at the mic so that they can record you, and anytime you want to jump in and say I know more than Andy on this, feel free.
So before it would go to the TIF, it would come to us, so we got that full $18,000.
There's no offset from the original taxes that you'll continue to receive. You'll receive the baseline taxes and the per student tuition.
So your question, I think I understand your question. Your question is, what if in the first year there's 10 kids generated?
Yeah.
and that would, there isn't enough in the increment to, or you're saying there is enough in the increment to cover that, but then that the increment would basically cover just those 10 kids. Is that what you're asking?
Right. So then, so what if like whatever the increment is what,
The increment is like the new growth on top.
and that's what goes to the TIF or
Correct.
to whatever the
The TIF fund.
that goes to
village
the
can-
TIF fund is the increment. So we get whatever the base value was.
What
We
you're
don't
getting
get
now.
it, which is
What-
what we're getting now.
You continue to get that throughout the life of the TIF.
Right. So then we just don't get any growth. But our expectation is then that might not meet our base needs to educate those kids. So we're going to take from the increment the amount that we need for tuition first. Am I understanding
Yes.
that correctly? Okay.
Regardless of the original base that you'll continue to receive.
So we might not get full growth, but we'll at least get what it will cost to put one of those students through school for a year.
Yes,
Okay.
Correct.
for every year.
And that would happen every year until the TIF ended,
Yes, and then you access all that new value.
the growth again.
That's the investment of sorts. If TIFs, the concept is they couldn't TIF this unless it would develop without the TIF money.
Right.
It has to be contingent on it, otherwise it's not a legal TIF.
Okay.
And that's all a question that needs to be answered yet by
The village, yep.
the village,
You have
not,
to do a study. It takes
Right.
it takes a good year or so.
yeah. And we don't know that, but that's why we built this in here, to make sure we are protected should that happen.
Yeah, so that we at least have the amount that it's going to cost to educate those kids, even if we don't have full growth.
Yeah, and the TIF, their justification for the TIF is that the cost for the water, sewer and water from the water district, that cost is so high, there's probably gonna be a water tower, that they couldn't develop this without TIF money to build that infrastructure.
Okay. Thanks. Sometimes TIFs get a little bit
Yeah.
confusing, so I wanted to
100%.
clarify.
100%.
You did say if they go to the TIF. If they, for whatever reason, decided not to go to the TIF, and then they went ahead with the project, then the district would have access to the full value of the tax assessment then.
That's correct, and would not get
Right.
the per pupil
Right.
expenditure.
Financial contribution, yes, but then there's no need for the tuition because you're getting property taxes.
Yeah, the financial contribution is built into this regardless of the TIF, right? The financial contribution is there as an agreement no matter what. The per pupil expenditure for, students in seats is if there's a TIF, then we would get that. If there's not, then we would not. Does that make sense?
Under some scenarios, the tuition would exceed what you're getting from property taxes, depending on how many kids come from the house.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing to really think about, and it is, I think, we don't know, right? There could be some scenarios where, depending on how many kids are generated through this agreement, the district could be actually capturing more revenue than we would be from, especially maybe early in the development before, the full value of the whole development is established. So, and then, so one more piece of that to note is that built into the language also is that we would be acknowledging as a district, okay, we're agreeing to this, this per pupil expenditure. We're also noting that we as a district will not formally object to the creation of the TIF. Doesn't mean that we're saying we would throw it a parade, or doesn't mean that we would be cheerleaders for it. It just says we're agreeing to this. If we're going to take the per pupil expenditure, we're agreeing to not object as they go through the process.
And
So-
that, I think the expectation would be a positive vote at the joint review.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Okay, so I did have a question. So we would be part of the joint review board just like we are in
That's correct.
Geneva then?
Yes.
Okay, and then is there a timeline on a point where we weren't able to object to a TIF? Because I couldn't tell from the language in the contract. Like if they wanted to create a TIF to build this development, we wouldn't object. But let's say in like 10 years, they're like, no, now we need to create a TIF. Are we still not objecting? Or if they create a TIF, and then like we've had recently where they were like, we need to extend the TIF, would we still just not have a say in that? Like, so I'm thinking more like 10, 15, 25 years down the road.
So the TIF goes for 23 years, and then it gets extended only by agreement of the school. So that's a whole separate, you'd be asking for more money at that point.
Okay, so we wouldn't be bound by this contract to still not disagree or to still not challenge the
It says
TIF
the
then?
creation, not the extension.
Okay, okay, perfect.
It could have said creation and extension, but.
But it
We
doesn't.
saved that.
Yeah.
Or if they go that way, then they have to talk to us again.
Then we'll do it. Yeah, okay, perfect.
Willard?
Yeah, I had a question. So
Yes, sir.
when you brought up the wastewater, I was looking into that and thinking about it. So would there be, in some cases, I did some research just looking into these kinds of annexations, if you will. So is there a risk that there may be overlapping water and wastewater utility infrastructure with this development? I mean, you say that they're gonna possibly put up a water tower, but is it gonna be self-contained, or are they gonna get with double expenses?
They're separate, just like in any other village. You couldn't mix up wastewater and,
Or not wastewater, but I'm just saying, will they be overlap? Because the research shows that there are some cases where there are overlapping expenses for people who are annexed into existing districts, but that's just the science looking at it. I'm just wondering.
yeah, I mean, there's gonna be I think if your question is, are there both wastewater and sewage and water supply?
Can't be self-contained. It has to be
Any
some overlap.
utilities, yeah, they're gonna dig the same trench for a lot of these utilities.
Okay.
They usually stack them on top of each other.
So will that cost, that expense, would that be just for the people in Canton Hills, or would that be part of our expense?
Yeah.
So the TIF increment is used to pay for that.
So that's the big if. That's a condition, right? So what if they don't? I mean, so then what do we stop? What are they gonna,
If they don't
if
do
they
a
don't
TIF,
go with the tip? Yeah.
then theoretically
The developer would pay.
the developer would be figuring out how to pay for that out of whatever their financial plan is for the development.
And they have to show a plan without the TIF, then they pay for all that, the infrastructure, and it won't make money. It's not feasible. But if the TIF comes in and pays for that, then it is feasible. They have to show those calculations. It's called a but-for test. But for the TIF, this wouldn't
Yes.
develop.
Be feasible.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, and the last component here, and this is a fairly new wrinkle. The district included in the agreement would be the district granting the developer a utility easement through a district-owned property at the corner of Kesslinger and Brundage. So let me show you this and talk you through this a little bit. So here is the whole development again. We were just looking at this. You see, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the show so that this can be a little bigger and I can point. So this is the whole development right here. This is the train tracks, right? And right down here at the very bottom is Kesslinger Road, okay? So right here is Mill Creek School, right where my cursor, you see that? This yellow box roughly is a 25-ish acre parcel that the district owns and has owned for some time. And there were potentially a few potential different uses for it over the years. The district, as I understand, put it on the market for a while, took it off the market when we felt a while back we couldn't get our asking price. And so this property is sitting here. What we've agreed to is, and this kind of goes to Dr. Hook's point, the developer would be getting the water for this from the Mill Creek Water Reclamation District, which is all over here, right? So, and potentially some of the utilities from over here too. So they would like an easement to this property to get the water and the utilities at all the appropriate setbacks and everything through this property to their development. We agree to that, or we propose agreeing to that, and we believe that's in the best interest of the district, because the other thing that that does is that makes that property much more valuable to us, because now that property has all those utilities there. And whether we decide down the road that there's something we need to do with that 30 acres of land, we now have utilities and don't have the cost of running all those utilities to that property. We decide we need to do something else with it. Maybe, you know, there's somebody else who this has been developed and there's something else that would be valuable there. That makes that property more valuable to a buyer, that the utilities are already there and they wouldn't have to do the very heavy lift to get utilities there.
And the easement will only go within the open space between a building, theoretical building, and the lot line, the setback. So let's say it's a 30-foot setback. It would have to go within that 30-foot non-buildable area. So the easement's not going to interfere with any future building plans by you or anybody else.
So, if I may.
Please.
So this is part of the overlap issue I was talking about, because those that live in Mill Creek, like I do, and other taxpayers, there have been, over the years, the last 20 years, at least that I've been there, 23 years, there are occasions where the Water Reclamation District does changes, like taking out radium, they will do other kinds of things. This is what I was talking about in terms of the possible overlap, where it's not just really self-contained, because that makes me wonder, is that going to have, I don't know, I wouldn't say tax implications, but would it add to the cost of those residents in Mill Creek?
I see what you're asking.
Yeah, because that's where they get the water from.
Yeah, you're asking, could this have implications on, could the utility extension have implications on other residents who are currently accessing those utilities? Yeah, fair question.
Yeah, the answer is no, that's going to be paid for by the TIF or the developer.
If they go with the tip.
Well, the TIF will pay for the extension, or the developer will. Nobody else is going to fund that extension.
Okay. I mean, I guess.
No, okay, the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I'm listening.
The water district pays for it.
Hmm.
And then would tax everyone, take from the tax it already receives from every resident, not just Mill Creek.
Well,
Which I think, which is why the TIF is on the table.
Right.
Which is why they're talking about it, because the water district in their conversations, like we've been having, would say there's no way to fund that without some different mechanism to fund that. The water district can't fund that from their current.
They're demanding multiple millions of dollars for that infrastructure from the developer.
Right.
that is why I brought that up, because over the last, at least my history, last 23 years, they will increase the rate, you know, because of what's happening internally in Mill Creek as it stands. So that's why I'm wondering. It's inherently going to be an overlap because they deal with the wastewater and the water that we drink. So, yeah, this is interesting.
So those are the big pieces. I don't know if there are other questions or concerns or comments the board wants to have.
One, I could throw in a couple comments about the agreement. And,
Yeah.
and glad to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ken.
Significantly, you can use the financial contribution, the $6,800 per house for any educational expenses. If traditional impact fees have more limited usage, so they've agreed to expand the allowed uses of the impact fee, which is very important because you're not likely going to build a new school over there.
And to clarify again, that's $6,800 whether or not they have students coming to the school. It's just once you get the permit to build the house.
Correct.
Plus CPI growth.
Right.
Yes, but no matter what, just when that residence has a permit for it, and it doesn't, there's no qualifier on size either. Sometimes in instances like this, there's qualifiers on the size of the residence, or
2-bedroom, 3-bedroom,
right.
4.
Right, or if it's a multi-unit, because
Yeah.
they are doing some multi-units,
Yes,
I believe.
this is just if it's a residence it's $6,800 plus the CPI.
So if it's a multi-unit, let's say it's 4-unit, that would be 4 times 6,800,
Correct.
not one
Yeah,
for the
because
complete
that's,
building.
that's
Got it.
4 residents.
Yes.
Yep, good question.
And we have that they must pay the, it's the developer's responsibility to pay the fee before the permit, when it applies for the permit. So to double check, another check and balance, we will ask the village to require proof of payment before they issue the permit. And we'll do that through the zoning process as a conditional approval of the zoning.
Are there other key things you think we should note, Ken?
Let's see, so we talked about the financial contribution, we talked about the TIF, we talked about mutual releases, which is important because no future homeowner can come back and say the $6,800 payment wasn't right, or the tuition payment wasn't right. No one else can benefit from this. There's no third-party beneficiaries to this. There's a couple, like, even though this is signed by the developer, there's a couple typos when the developer made some edits that we'll fix, and then get it re-signed and then signed by the board if the board approves it tonight. And this will be recorded, so if some other builder buys land, they know what the fees, what the cost for the permit fee or the impact fee, as well as the tuition payments.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting, and we kind of talked about this at a previous meeting, but the reason we had a special meeting tonight is because the village will be considering the annexation agreement next week, I think at the same time that we have a board meeting. And we recognize, I think they recognize and we recognize that it's in everybody's best interest to have this in place by the time the village is considering that annexation agreement. It's in everybody's best interest to have this in place, so we wanted to have this meeting this week and be able to have some of these important conversations now. If we're going to get this in place, that puts everybody in the best position possible before the Village of Campton Hills has their potential annexation discussion next week. That's right, Ken?
Correct.
Yeah.
And another point about what happens 10 years from now, who's watching this. Because it's recorded, it'll show up on every home's title report. And they want a release from us that it's been paid, so the title company doesn't object. So that's enough. We won't give them the release until they pay us. So it's a couple different ways to make sure we get paid.
One quick question. We do not know how Campton Hills is planning to set up the TIF, because there are some existing homes in that LaFox area that we are not, that currently are in our district, and I assume are paying taxes to us.
That's correct.
So if is there a possibility that they could make a little bit wider area there to cover some of those homes, and would that impact us negatively in any way?
So we're only agreeing to a TIF thing that addresses the Shodine property, not in anything. If they tried to expand it, we'd say, listen, that's not the deal.
Okay.
Then it's a good old-fashioned fight.
Yeah.
It still might end up doing it, but it would be over our objections, and we'd have the same ability to object that we would anyways. We're not waiving that objection.
No, go,
No, it looked like Dan had a question.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, want to kind of continue the line of thought that Willard had in regard to the water utility. Have we had conversation with the water district in regard to their current plant and the capacity to be able to service these 900 homes over the next 25 years or whatever? Because I think that's what Willard's trying to get at is will there have to be some at the plant itself? Not, I get what's happening at the development, but at the plant itself, is there enough capacity, or will they have to do some expansion in order? And so that cost, I think, is what Willard's trying to get at.
Yeah.
Will be extended out to the current users of Mill Creek Water utility, and so you know, that cost will be passed on basically to the current residents of Booker. Is that, anyway, that is my question. I don't know if that's, and so I just wondered if a conversation has been made with the water utility in regard to their ability as the plant currently stands, are they able to handle the wastewater and the water that comes with putting in 900 homes?
So Jodine and the village have been talking with the water, reclamation, the
Yeah.
water district.
Yeah, water reclamation district.
Water reclamation,
Yep.
and that's the water reclamation district said, you have to pay us $20 million, or whatever the number is. And when they heard that number, that's to expand the existing facilities, to run the lines, everything, all the impact,
Okay,
so that it doesn't pass it on to the other homeowners.
okay,
Yeah.
so,
That's, again, that job is for the village and Jodine.
okay,
And we've been aware of that, and again, that's a justification for the TIF.
okay.
If there's a tip, right? Or is it,
If there's no TIF, then Jodine pays it.
Jodine pays them? Yeah,
I think
go ahead.
my sense would
Yeah.
be, I mean, I can't say this for sure, I don't know what would happen, but my sense would be, to your point, Dan, once it's established that the water reclamation district would need this much new infrastructure, not just in the neighborhood,
Of
right?
course, of course.
But yeah, at the plant, all that kind of stuff. Once it's established that the water reclamation district would need that additional infrastructure to the tune of $20-some million, and they're saying they're having this same discussion with the developer that we are, right? And they're saying, you've got to be able to give us this, or we can't, you know, this is not sustainable and this won't work. And that, I think, was the impetus for this conversation. I think to your question, I mean, I can't say this for sure, but I think they might say, if there's that much financial need for the water reclamation district for the infrastructure, and they can't figure out how to get the money from, say, the TIF, then the project itself might not be feasible, and they might just, like several of the other projects that have come and gone over the years, that could happen.
materialize, right?
Yeah, it could not materialize because yes, Jodine would have to pay it, but maybe they would say they can't pay it because they don't have it, right?
Yeah, the water reclamation district has to agree to allow them to connect, so they have control over the development.
Right. So, and I can say that over the last 23 years, they've expanded that capacity once. I remember that per household, they increased the bill for 12 months for $100. That was about 15 years ago, I believe. And so that's kind of jolt that we want to try to avoid for not just people who are in this development, but also for the existing residents that use that district, water reclamation district.
Yeah, I think Ken's point was, I'm glad he just said that. The water reclamation district has the power to say yes or no, right? If they can't get to the pipe, then you can't do the thing, right?
Right.
So
But they don't have, there's no right to hook up to them. They have to agree to allow them to hook up, grant them a permit.
so the only way they're going to agree is to, you know,
Yes.
right.
Different question. I hope it's in order. I'm not sure. So for this per household assessment, I'm just trying to understand how people who are living in the district east of the Fox River, does that mean that there's going to be more allocation of resources for these influx of students on the schools that are west of the river? And would that create inequity or the appearance of inequity in terms of upgrades, resources, things like that?
Yeah, fair question. I think as Ken noted, one of the benefits of the agreement that we've negotiated is that impact fee we can, you know, spend on any educational cost. And the same as that per pupil expenditure, when that comes in, that goes to our bottom line, and then that's on Todd to spend that as our district sees fit. Because we recognize that you could have kids there who need to come all the way over here to the high school, and the needs might be at the high school or whatever, right? So we can, so I would not envision this being a scenario where this creates some kind of inequitable spend.
So I would take it that you would have to make that crystal clear to the the teachers, the students, the residents as well, because again, we want to how you say, reduce the appearance or the likelihood that would be the way people
Right.
visualize it.
While still recognizing there is a potential that, you know, you're probably going to need to spend more of that money in the places where those kids are. So,
Yes.
you know, if those kids are at, and we haven't even gotten that far yet, but say those kids were at Mill Creek School or at Fabian School, well, you're going to need to put more resources in those places for those kids in those places. But that's not any different than what it is right now, where there might be more kids at, you know, X school, where that means there's more teachers at that school
Well-
because, you know, there's more kids or whatever.
And you're existing, you have capacity, so that helps.
Yes,
Having-
correct.
But logistically, as I'm thinking about the location, and I just kind of mapped it out, so it's like from that development proposed area to say the middle school is about 10-minute drive, that is, for the school buses. But my point is, would it be likely that you're going to have students from this development to go to school at Harrison Street? Not likely.
Not likely.
And that's why I said
Yeah.
the appearance of inequity, because even though you're saying you're going to distribute it, you still have added costs, maintenance, those kinds of things
Yeah.
on those schools that are going to be west of the river.
Correct.
That's why
Yeah.
I asked that question.
Yeah. And we'll be talking about that. I mean, our general capital needs, a lot of talk coming up about that here over the next several meetings. And that goes to why, again, we thought it was so important to make sure that that money coming in was money we could use on kind of any cost for the district.
Even though the cost will increase, most likely, west of the Fox
Right.
River.
Right. Yep.
On that note, is this gonna be on the budget as a separate line item or in a separate account, or just like total bottom line kind of thing? What will that look like, so when we see it?
Yeah, so we already designate developer contributions into the operations and maintenance accounts in a segregated account so that we can set those aside because there are some contingencies placed upon the use of those funds. So when you see your typical reports from me, you'll see where we have two asset accounts. One is the traditional operations and maintenance, one is the set aside from developer contributions that we received over time.
This would be in a second account because it doesn't have the same restrictions.
Yes, so we just create another asset account, so we go from 2 to 3 and that money comes into that. So we could account it for it directly for that particular development.
Okay. If there's no further questions at the moment, I think we need to move on to item 3, and then 4 would be an opportunity for the board to formally consider this.
Item 3 is public comments. Would you like to say anything? Anyone like to say anything? Bonnie, is anybody request? No? Okay, well, that item is then complete. Item 4, board dialogue topics and pending action consideration. Item number 1 in that section is the developer donation agreement, La Fox of Campton Hills. Questions or discussion?
I think we had a pretty robust one. Thank you. Thank you. So then the question would be, vote to
We
support
need
it.
a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion.
Motion to approve the
Yeah,
Developer donation.
developer
donation agreement.
donation agreement.
Subject to review by your attorney because we're gonna have to tweak some of
Yeah.
the.
Subject
Okay.
to review by our attorney.
Would you say that motion again? I'm sorry. Sorry. Yeah,
It's
just
motion to
Motion
approve.
to approve the developer donation agreement for the La Fox of Campton Hills, subject to the review of our attorney.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Andy, I'm sorry, I had one more question that
Oh.
I know we talked about it last board meeting, but if you could refresh my memory in regard to that first amount, how do we come with that $6,800 or whatever, how do we come to that dollar amount again?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think one way to think of it is we were looking at the land cash ordinance that's in place, and that's kind of where that big 6.1 number came from, right? That 6.1 million came
Okay.
from,
Yep.
and then we kind of backtracked that per residence. Does that sound about
It's a
fair?
negotiated number based on their ordinance.
Okay, yeah, I knew that it was
Ken
negotiated.
said it better than Andy,
Okay.
so that's why Ken's here.
Any other questions?
We'll need a second for that.
I'll
Okay.
second.
We have a motion by Paul and then a second by Dan.
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that completes item 4. Is there any other questions relative to the agenda?
I just wanted to thank Todd for all his work on this again, to thank Ken and his colleague Brittany for all their time and effort. And again, thank you all for the support as we worked through this. So really trying to work hard to just do the best for our district that we could. So thanks for the time and effort. It is truly appreciated.
True. The last item would be a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Bonnie? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody. See you Monday.